The amendment be made, and on that question a division has been challenged. Tellers Thaw, Deputy John Curran and Deputy John Lahart, Neil, Deputy Angus O'Snuddy and Deputy Denise Mitchell. Thaw 30, Neil 73. There was one abstention. The amendment number 2 is lost. Can I ask the Labour Party, is amendment number 1 being pressed? Na teachtaí tar haimh na tairiscin sin abradaois tá. Aine tá na gunnar abradaois Neil. Stolim Gwilym Butcher and Cash, please. The question is defeated. Vote all.
Amendment 250, motion re the living wage. Amendment number 1 in the name of Deputy Willie Penrose. The question is that the amendment be made, and on that question division has been challenged. Tellers Ta, Deputies Brendan Ryan and Jan O'Sullivan, Yale, Deputies Angus O'Snuddy and Denise Mitchell. Shantaru Nata, Shejag, Neil Aquacuig, Stain Dinyawan, agus the Vrishan Thankesh Kalcha. So, as amendment has been defeated, we move to amendment number 1. Deputy Coppinger, number 3. Deputy Coppinger, where stands amendment number 3? Has it been pressed? It should, amendment number 3, it should have a wawer abadis ta, and a gunya abadis neil, Sheelan Gun Kesh Kalcha. Question? Vote out. Item 250, motion re the living wage. Amendment 3 in the name of Deputy Mick Barry. The question is that the amendment be made, and on that question the division has been challenged. Tellers Ta, Deputies Mick Barry and Ruth Coppinger, Dail, Angus Snuddy and Denise Mitchell. Shin Tarun Ta, Och Jeg, Neil Aquahan, they're staying in Enya, the Rishanta and Kesh Kalcha. So now that no amendments have been carried, I must put the motion. So it should have taken a Wawer, Aberdish Ta, and a Gunya, Aberdish Neil. The motion is carried. Agreed, agreed. Now, I must deal with the postponed division relating to Amendment number 1 in the name of the Minister for Transport, Tourism and Sport, to the second reading for the Road Traffic Amendment Use of Electric Scooters Bill 2019. Yesterday, on that question that the amendment be made, division was claimed in accordance with Standing Order 72. The division has now been taken. The clerk will ring the bells and note short bells. Amendment 68, the Road Traffic Amendment, Use of Scooters Bill 2019. Amendment 1 in the name of the Minister for Transport. The question is that the amendment be made. On that question, the division has been challenged. Deputy Tellers, Deputy Shankind, Peter Burke, Deputies John Kern and John Lahart.
Next bit is just this bit here.
Sin tarú na tá Sheskadá, Neil Trohadá, the Rishan Tankesh Richa. So I now must put the question, is the motion as amended agreed to? Agreed. Agreed. The motion as amended is agreed and the bill will therefore be read a second time in 3 months. Now, we will continue with the topicals.
Sorry, I couldn't make it last week.
You're all right.
Sorry.
Who's the Minister? And the first topic is the name of Deputies Rabbit and Fitzmaurice. Both deputies have 2 minutes each to make an initial statement, and then the Minister. Deputy Rabbit.
All right. Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Laskin Corda, for the opportunity to discuss my topical today and Deputy Fitzmaurice's, which is to discuss the date to reconvene the new beef task force. I suppose, Minister, the reason the question has been asked today on the floor of the Dáil is it has been going on since last Monday. We were supposed to have the inaugural meeting on Monday. It didn't go ahead. My understanding is that the beef plan and the INHFA turned up. MI, one of them got in the door, but the rest of it didn't happen due to unforeseen circumstances outside Ag House. But those unforeseen circumstances at the same time have left the beef task force parked out there. We need to have a date when this is to start, and I think if I'm sharing my time with Deputy Fitzmaurice now, he will continue on the conversation.
Yeah, Minister, first of all, we need clarification on how often the task force is going to sit. Second of all, it isn't a good situation where everyone doesn't get to the table. We all acknowledge that. But at the end of the day, there's a beef crisis out there. We cannot just bury our heads in the sand. We know that there is injunctions on some people that basically they're referring to the 5th quarter of those people, that there was a protest there. They were told by people to, if all protests were stood down, that the injunctions would be lifted. Can you try and use influence to help that situation? But on top of that, the most important thing is that the farmers, that the representatives get back to the table and get the task force up and running, because at the end of the day, beef is on its knees, we know at the moment. We need solutions. We don't need to say that this set us back or the other thing set us back. We need to make sure that the chairman of this takes it by the scruff of the necks and moves it forward. And to be honest about it, we cannot move forward while there's injunctions hanging there if you listen to the farm leaders. So that needs resolving.
All of your time, but I know Deputy Murphy's interest, and unfortunately, due to standing orders, just those who table. Yeah. Well, we know your interest. Minister Doyle.
Thanks, Laskin Corda. Thank the deputies. As you will and have outlined, be aware, the inaugural meeting of the Beef Task Force was scheduled to take place on Monday, the 14th of October, but unfortunately had to be suspended following events outside of Agriculture House. Members of the task force were prevented from attending the meeting and were subject to physical violence and intimidation. Members of staff of my department were also subjected to abusive and threatening behaviour. And while I and we all support the rights of individuals to engage in peaceful protest, I hope that everybody agrees that there is no excuses for the behaviour which occurred on Monday. It's completely unacceptable. I'd like to thank the department staff who managed the situation in a calm and professional manner. As I said, it's in the interest of everybody involved in the beef industry that the work of the task force should go ahead. The independent chair and my officials are continuing to consult with stakeholders with a view to progressing key elements of the agreement. The task force remit is to monitor the implementation of the actions arising from the agreement reached on the 15th of September and offers the most viable platform for strategic engagement with key stakeholders. The agreement involves a number of interventions which will provide immediate benefit for beef farmers or beef producers, as well as a range of strategic measures which seek to address structural imbalances in the sector. Beef producers will benefit from an immediate increase in a range of bonuses. This will increase the level of bonus being paid on certain animals, as well as significantly increase the number of animals which will be eligible for a bonus. The cumulative effect is that over 70% of all steers and heifers slaughtered will now be eligible for a bonus on top of the basic price. A number of actions in the area of market transparency, beef promotion and strengthening the position of the farmer in the supply chain are included in the agreement. These measures set a course towards greater clarity for all stakeholders. The Department is also proactively engaging in several potential beef producer organisations which have the potential to strengthen the bargaining power of beef farmers in the supply chain. 2 producer organisations have already been formally recognised in the recent weeks. The Minister, we established the Beef Market Task Force to provide the leadership to develop a sustainable pathway for the future of the beef sector in terms of economic, environmental and social sustainability. The intention was that the task force should provide a robust implementation structure for commitments entered into in the agreement, with timelines and stakeholder engagement. So I would urge all parties to make every effort to ensure that this important work can commence. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for your response. But I suppose really what I was looking for was a date. And regrettably, you have not provided me with that date. And I think, like, we all acknowledge the pressure that's on all family farms at this moment in time. But this was one of the nuggets that was actually given on the 15th of September, when we actually had to go back to picket lines to step people down. That part of the agreement was the formation of the new Beef Task Force. Now, we need to have a date for that, because there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of good work that needs to get done there, and we all agree on that. Now, what happened last Monday is regrettable, absolutely. Nobody could condone it. It's regrettable on all sides. I did send an email, and I'm sure I'm not the only person that wrote to say that we would feel there was going to be disarray outside Ag House, and it wasn't. It could have been avoided, and it wasn't avoided. We need to have a date, and that's the only thing I'm asking from you today on the floor, Minister, is a date.
Minister, thanks for your reply. First of all, there's a few simple things that we need clarification on. Where's the price index? It was to be done a month ago. It's not done. Second of all, as you've pointed out, threatening or whatever, that solves nothing for anybody, and none of us here would agree with that. But the one thing that needs to be done, Minister, is while there's something hanging over people's heads, whether a phone call is needed or a goodwill gesture by a parent company of a company, someone needs to stand up to the mark and be counted. Secondly, Minister, you might answer how many times is it envisaged that it meets? And thirdly, Minister, my understanding of the agreement that was reached was that 4 months was required before weights or anything like that could be changed, and we have seen over the last week different weights and categories being announced by certain processors. And is that within the remit at the moment, or why isn't that tackled? And being honest about it, the chairperson of this has to show leadership of this task force. They have to stand up and be counted, and make sure that things get solved behind the scenes before you let things get out of hand. Thank you.
Well, on that last point, I'd say the chairman has shown leadership. He actually, him and members of the officials from the department walked down the street, out through the group that were outside, and down to meet other farm organisations that declined the offer to come upstairs and meet them. And he is and will continue to embark on a range of bilateral discussions with each stakeholder party. I can't give you a date at the moment. I wish I could. And the issues that you talk about injunctions and that would have been better dealt with upstairs if the people had been let in, instead of giving them, I'm not saying a reason, but not allowing them to be confronted about that under the structure that was there, which was the task force. So that should have been dealt with as maybe a preliminary to the meeting. As regards the number of meetings, there will be as many as is necessary. I don't want to preempt the work of the chairman, but there are a number of measures that need to be taken place, and they won't all necessarily need everybody from the task force group, but they may need working groups. I'm only speculating as to the way I envisage it might happen. So there may be a range of meetings that are not task force meetings, but are people from within the task force who will actually be toing and froing. So, I mean, there is a template there. There is an agreement in place. There's actions and measures which need to be indicated on. I'll have to get you an answer on the index. I don't have it to hand. But these are the things that should be dealt with through the forum that's established. So it appealed to everybody, the people who feel aggrieved at the way they were treated on Monday, the same as the people who didn't come up to the meeting, and to those who actually were outside preventing him. Let this task force get about its work, show the goodwill. We had an exhaustive set of meetings on over two periods. Initially, when out in Back Weston, and then secondly on the 14th and 15th in Agriculture House. Let this task force get up and running, because it's in all our interest, any of us that have a real serious commitment to the beef sector, to see progress on all fronts.
On to the second topic, to the Minister for Education and Skills. Deputy Haughey has 4 minutes for an initial statement.
Thank you, Lascan Corla. Yesterday morning there was a devastating fire at School Katrina Collini at Mask Avenue in Coolock. As a result, the school is now closed, and around 200 pupils who attended the senior school have no school to go to. The junior school is also closed for the remainder of this week at least. The mood in Coolock, Artane and Harmonstown is one of absolute shock. Teachers and staff, parents and children are very upset and simply cannot believe what has happened. This school has been at the heart of the local community for nearly 60 years, and there is a huge loyalty to it in the area. Parents have been actively involved in fundraising for the school down through the years, and in maintaining the gardens and so on. And the school also facilitates local charity events, as well as many other events and occasions. The area in question is an old established Dublin community. Evidence of this was seen yesterday when local people rallied to the cause, as it were. St Paul's Youth Club and the Coolock Residents Association offered tea to all those affected by the fire yesterday morning. Yesterday, when I visited the school, I spoke to some of the staff and parents, and would again like to extend my solidarity and support to the Principal, Imelda Whelan, to the Deputy Principal, Fiona Gormley, to the Board of Management of the school, and to all those affected by the fire. A Garda investigation into the cause of the fire is now underway, and hopefully we will know the outcome of this investigation sooner rather than later. I would like to praise the Dublin Fire Brigade for their professionalism and bravery in bringing the fire under control as soon as possible. 6 units of the Dublin Fire Brigade fought the blaze and eventually put it out. Thankfully, nobody was injured yesterday. As a result of their efforts, the junior school was saved. It was the subject of water and smoke damage, and hopefully it can be up and running again very shortly. However, it has to be stated that there are reports that the efforts of the fire brigade were delayed due to a problem with poor water pressure in the area. Yesterday I met a resident who told me that the fire hydrant outside his house was not working and was in fact full of concrete. The area does experience poor water pressure generally on an ongoing basis. These issues will have to be examined by the Dublin City Council, Irish Water and the Dublin Fire Brigade. There is now an urgent need to find alternative accommodation for the teachers and pupils as soon as possible. Everyone in the area is very anxious about this. I acknowledge that you, Minister, and your officials visited the school yesterday, and I thank you for that. We need to get the junior school, which was damaged by water and smoke, as I said, we need to get that open quickly. Options for the senior school include temporary prefab accommodation on site. The school is a very large site and has the space for this. I'm just wondering what the planning requirements would be to put prefabs in place. Also, we need to look at availability of any spare capacity in other schools in the area. Minister, when you spoke to the parents yesterday, they told you that they want their children to continue their schooling in the immediate area, and I hope that can be done. I would also like to say that the damaged school building itself should be repaired and renovated without any unnecessary delay. And I hope that this process can commence almost immediately and that a contractor will be on site in the shortest possible time frame. So this is a resilient school community. Yes, it had a setback, but this can be overcome. And I do look forward to hearing the Minister's response and to see what progress has been made since you visited the school yesterday. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the Deputy for raising this matter, and it was good to meet you out there yesterday, and I know along with the other Oireachtas members in that area, you want to see priority around this issue, and I am with you on that. For raising this matter, it gives me opportunity to outline to the House steps been taken to ensure both Scoil Caitríona Cailíní, because Scoil Caitríona Neenan schools reopen as quickly as possible following a fire early yesterday morning. I want to commend, in similar fashion as the Deputy, the Principal Imelda Whelan and her Deputy Principal Fiona Gormley for their leadership on this issue. And I did hear very strong sentiments coming from the community that they're looking for a locally based solution. That's something that I've passed on to my officials. Scoil Caitríona Cailíní agus Scoil National Caitríona Neenan are located on the same site at Mask Avenue, Coolock, Dublin 5. Scoil Naomh Caitríona Neenan is a junior school and enrolls boys and girls from junior infants to first class. 236 pupils were enrolled in this school in September 2018, and the current staffing is principal, 13 mainstream teachers and 3 special education teaching posts. Scoil Caitríona Cailíní is a senior girls' school and enrolls girls from 2nd class to 6th class. The enrolment in this school in September 2018 was 202 pupils and has a current staffing of principal, 9 mainstream teachers and 2.6 special education posts. Boys from the junior school are enrolled in the adjacent St Brendan's National School, which has not been impacted by the fire. All 3 schools participate in the Delivering Equality in School JESH programme. As the Deputy is aware, following a fire early yesterday morning, Scoil Caitríona Senior National School was completely destroyed, and while Scoil Caitríona Junior School was not damaged by the fire, it did suffer some minor water damage, and both schools will remain closed for the rest of this week. I visited Scoil Caitríona Cailíní yesterday morning to see for myself the impact of the fire and to speak to the principal and school management. This is obviously a traumatic incident. For all those connected to the school, my department will provide every assistance to the school community during this difficult time. The immediate focus is getting the schools back in operation as early as possible next week. I understand that a number of local schools have offered assistance in relation to helping the immediate accommodation needs of Scoil Caitríona Senior School. Scoil Caitríona Junior School, while not damaged by fires, suffered some minor water damage, and it will remain closed for the rest of the week and hopefully be in a position to open next week. The department had a senior official liaison with the principal and school management throughout yesterday, and this will continue for as long as necessary. A senior architect from my department was also out of the schools yesterday to assess the situation and met with the principals of both the senior and junior schools. I understand the school authorities are meeting today. I've had no feedback from that meeting today at this juncture, and will be updating parents and staff in the first instance on the accommodation arrangements proposed for next week. Once the school has reopened, my department will be in discussion with the school patron and Board of Management to explore all options available to address the school's accommodation needs pending the reinstatement of the destroyed building.
Deputy Haughey is 2 minutes.
Well, again, I'd like to thank the Minister for his response. I appreciate that this is an evolving situation and that meetings are taking place today, as the Minister said in his contribution there. But as I say, parents are very anxious about the situation and their children, and they do need more definite arrangements to be conveyed to them as soon as possible. So again, while I appreciate that discussions are ongoing and that various options are still under consideration, including the utilising of spare capacity in neighbouring schools, and I'd like to thank those schools for offering their assistance. The sooner we can have clarity on all of these issues, the better, because anybody here will know the inconvenience caused for parents in particular when their children are off school. Parents have work commitments and so on, various other commitments, and it's not good for the children themselves, whether they appreciate it or not, to be off school for too long. So, as I say, this was a devastating fire. There are a number of issues that need to be investigated. I know it's not the responsibility of the Minister, but the Garda investigation should be concluded as soon as possible. And the issues in relation to water pressure, which were carried in some of the media today, and which I heard about at first hand yesterday. Apparently there was a delay in getting adequate water supply to the school to deal with the fire, and that water had to be taken from the Malahide Road, which is a little bit further away. All these issues need to be looked at, but the sooner we can have clarity on this on this outcome and the new arrangements to be put in place, the better. As I said, it is a resilient school community. It's had a setback, but where there's a will, there's a way. And Minister, we do need your practical help and support, and the practical help and support of your officials in their discussions with the school authorities to ensure that the accommodation is provided as soon as possible, and that the school itself is repaired and renovated in the shortest possible time frame. So normality for all concerned has to be restored as soon as possible.
Minister, 2 minutes.
Okay, yeah, just to reiterate again and to re-emphasise and to agree with you, there's a time frame needed. There's an outline needed in terms of people making preparations and families making preparations as well. So look, we're hoping to be in a position that the junior school will be back next week. We're looking at all options in relation to temporary provision prior to the school being rebuilt again. And that will look at all options from prefabs to spare capacity in local schools. So everything's on the table. I don't want to highlight one over the other, but we need a common sense solution here as well. We certainly have an understanding that we need some sort of an outline that gives parents confidence that their sons and daughters will be back in the classroom. So we will keep the communication lines open, and as soon as we get any information update, that will be conveyed to the parents as well through the usual channels, which will be through the principal and their leadership at the school. But I just want, once again, finally, just say to everybody that's been involved in the emergency services, right through to the Gardaí school community, when push comes to shove, and it showed, you used the word resilience in that particular community. When push came to shove yesterday, the community came together, and we have a duty now in the department to respond to the needs and demands of that community, and I'm happy to step up to the plate in that regard. So as soon as we have any direction or any information around what's going to happen now in the short term, not the medium to long term, in the short term, I'm happy to convey that back. Thank you.
And Chuck Martin Hayden. So we await the arrival, and Minister English is with us. So in your own time, Deputy Hayden, you will have 4 minutes.
Minister, Newbridge in County Kildare is a town that has seen really significant population growth in recent years. Our population standing now at over 22,500 leads us to be the biggest town in County Kildare and the 10th biggest town in all of Ireland, with the potential for further sustainable growth and development through already planned developments as well as land zoned in other areas. But our town faces challenges. And the main challenge we face in Newbridge is that of traffic and how our main street is choked with congestion. Kildare County Council have a proposal. They've identified a site for a second bridge over the River Liffey that is really, really important. And this, along with road construction, would see a linking between Great Connell Road and the Garvin Road. But while Kildare County Council still need to acquire planning permission for the bridge, some of the road linkages are being delivered through private sector developments as part of ongoing planning permissions. Minister, as you are well aware, Project Ireland 2040, Government's national plan for how our country develops between now and 2040, acknowledges the direct pressure that's on areas like mine and yours in Kildare and Meath, areas that saw huge growth during a very short period of time with the Celtic Tiger, and that a lot of housing developments were built where the key infrastructure needed around it wasn't built at the same speed and capacity. And Project Ireland 2040 identifies the need to support areas like yours and mine where we can play that level of catch-up. And Newbridge is a perfect example of that. We need to see that key investment in key infrastructure, and the return will be the return on investment for the state will be very tangible for all to see. I'm mindful of the fact that the next round of the Urban Regeneration and Development Fund is due to open soon, and I'm looking to raise this to see what steps do Kildare County Council need to take to strengthen their application from the last one, to look at how we can put a second bridge for Newbridge as a top priority for that application. In the proposal that was previously made, it looked to identify to reduce traffic congestion out of the town centre and off of our main street, and it also will complement other projects that have been developed and that are being worked on at present. So we have seen a grant allocation through the UDRF towards the development of a cultural quarter in Newbridge, and this is the lower end of the town, closer to the river, where we will see, and it will complement the redevelopment hopefully of our county grounds in St Conleth's Park, the refurbishment of our town hall which has happened, and the planned upgrade of Riverbank Arts Centre and the development of a state-of-the-art library in that sector. All of those elements are being funded through Project Ireland 2040 and the ongoing plans for that development of that cultural quarter. The other side of Newbridge, further away from the river, sees a thriving retail hub all around the Whitewater Shopping Centre, and our main street has benefited from that. But our side streets can take more capacity, can take more investment, and all of this comes from making sure that we have a sustainable traffic plan for the future. So, in that regard, I would like to see that we can work on these projects, because the National Transport Authority have a national transport framework developed for Newbridge, and what this looks to do is it plans to make Newbridge Main Street more accessible to pedestrians, cyclists and public transport. The project could result in an investment of €10 million from the NTA into Newbridge, and the proposed improvements would see the displacement of traffic off the main street, but the delivery of a second bridge is absolutely crucial for that, and the improvements would result in a reduction of our carbon footprint as well, allowing more residents within the town to move within the town, by cycling, for pedestrians, but also to make sure that we take the traffic away. And that also then is identified in the previous application from Kildare County Council to help compact and consolidated development on the zoned lands in Newbridge's south-east quadrant. So this bridge makes sense on a whole realm of different areas, and I just want to put to you how best we can get Kildare County Council to put the best foot forward for the next round of funding for the UDRF.
Minister English is 4 minutes.
Thanks, Corla. First of all, I want to thank Deputy Martin Hayden for raising the need for a second bridge for Newbridge, County Kildare, over the River Liffey, to be progressed through our Project 2040 and through the Urban Generation Development Fund as well. And again, to give me the opportunity to discuss that today and to outline how I believe and how we believe as a government that Project 2040 can help causes like this and can help through the Urban Regeneration Development Fund achieve vital infrastructure like the bridge you just outlined and other pieces of infrastructure as well. Again, you are right to say that under Project Ireland 2040, which sets out the plan for the next 20-25 years of this country, where we're going to try and rebalance growth in terms of population growth and rebalance housing construction with all other services required as well, that it won't just happen on the East Coast, which happened in Meath and Kildare, many other places in Dublin, but it will happen right throughout the country with that regional balance. But an important part of that is while accommodating future developments in all our counties, and there will be growth still in all our counties as well, and Meath and Kildare will see additional growth, but also that we rectify some of the mistakes of the past. And a key part of Project Ireland 2040 was recognising that in many areas, certainly in probably the Greater Dublin region of Kildare, Meath, Wicklow and probably Louth as well, you can see examples where increased housing developments and all the pressures that brought with it wasn't matched with the infrastructure required and wasn't matched with the services required. And that's recognised under Project Ireland 2040, and we want to try to correct that through the various funds, as well as allow for more development and more compact development, and develop all those back streets that you referred to in all our towns and villages as well, and those brownfield sites that aren't necessarily being used very well. So again, what is the Urban Regeneration Development Fund and how can it help here? The UDRF is a flagship element of Project Ireland 2040. It comprises an allocation of €2 billion in the National Development Plan to 2027, with €58 million available in 2019 and an overall executive allocation of €550 million earmarked for the fund up to the end of 2022. The URDF was established to support more compact and sustainable development, and sustainable is the key word when it comes to Newbridge as well, through the regeneration and rejuvenation of Ireland's 5 cities and other large towns like Newbridge, in line with the objectives of the National Planning Framework and the National Development Plan. This is to enable a greater proportion of residential and mixed-use development to be delivered within the existing built-up footprints of our cities and towns, and to ensure that more parts of our urban areas can become attractive and vibrant places in which people choose to live and work, as well as to invest and to visit. And as a key part here is trying to go back into areas which did experience development and housing development. And as you said, Newbridge now is 22,500, quite a large population. We want to try to make that a more attractive place, and a more place that people want to live in, raise their families in, but also to help you win investment, win jobs, to support people who are already living there and who will be living in the future as well. And it's important that we get that right. And we know that by investing through these funds, we are making our towns and villages and cities more attractive and more secure. And this is about future-proofing our communities, our neighbourhoods, our towns and our villages as well, and that's what we're trying to achieve here. The bids were invited from the public bodies for funding under the fund, and a total of 189 applications were received by my department in the first call for proposals earlier in 2018. On November 18, Minister Murphy announced the initial URDF support of 100 million for a total of 88 projects throughout the country. The applications received that time contained a wide variety of themes and sectorial areas, from urban regeneration and public realm works to enabling strategic infrastructure to leverage further development and cultural and amenity development. Applications received fell into two categories. Firstly, projects that are ready to go, that had planning are ready to go. Secondly, funding to support the initial development of projects, i.e. master planning feasibility, to ensure a pipeline of projects into the future. So again, naturally, you asked me what can Kildare do. Kildare did submit 7 the last time. One of those 7 was Newbridge. It wasn't successful that time. It was the link road and the bridge from Great Connaught Road to Atgarvan Road in Newbridge. It didn't achieve full marks or full reward on that. And you mentioned that going for planning. Yes, if it had planning, it would certainly help that. But also, there is funding on the project on the B to be able to help you progress that planning, progress the study, the markability of that, the feasibility, which was the case in Selbridge as well, that in Kildare. And then you can use that funding to make the project to prove proof of concept and bring it through the various planning stages to have it ready for funding on the Section A as well. So there's 2 options there with this fund that would suit this project. And if Kildare make another application, I'll finish this. The applications will be open again in the near future, before the end of this year. And Kildare should make an application on that, and hopefully it will be successful this time.
Deputy Hayden has 2 minutes.
Thank you, and thank Minister for your detailed response. And look, I take your points of view on board, and I will work. I'm delighted to hear that the Urban Regeneration Fund will open up for applications again before the end of the year, and I will work closely with officials in Kildare County Council, as I have done up until now, to make sure we put our best foot forward for Newbridge and for a second bridge for Newbridge, because I do believe that a second bridge for Newbridge meets the objectives of the National Planning Framework, as you've outlined. That's sustainable, balanced development. It ticks all of those boxes. And when we consider in Newbridge that we have a pot of money there from the NTA of potentially €10 million for them to use Newbridge as a pilot scheme to develop an overall transport framework that could then be rolled out as a template across other provincial towns. This is a massive opportunity for us, and we can't let that opportunity be wasted, because we do need a second bridge to really allow that plan work in its entirety. And Project Ireland is about, as you have said, making our towns and our counties better places to live. And many of my constituents in Newbridge aspire not to have to travel up the M7 or on the overcrowded trains out of Newbridge every day, and instead to be able to work locally in their area. And a second bridge over the River Liffey would make Newbridge an even more attractive place for industry to invest in. We have jobs there at the minute, we have industry and investment, but we yearn for more, to give more options to our residents to live there. I take on board your point of view that if the bridge had planning, it would definitely help. And maybe there are some ways we can further that in Kildare, as we have furthered the sections of road being developed privately. Maybe there's a possibility for us to be able to do that as well with a bridge. But we will continue to do the work on that. And Minister, I would just like to wrap up by saying maps dating back to 1752, drawn up before the town was started, marks the new bridge area in the vicinity of Old Connell, and that gave its name to Droichead Nua. Hundreds of years later, our needs are very different, but the demand and the pressure on our town is really, really significant. Newbridge or nowhere requires the second bridge, or our traffic will have nowhere to go off the main street, as it presently is congested. And I believe the benefits for all of the residents and for the wider socio-economic environment in the greater Newbridge, South Kildare area would really benefit from this investment, and I look forward to an application going into you in the near future.
Final response.
you're making a strong case there for the next round of funding for New Bridge and for this piece of infrastructure, bridge with road as well. It's important again that Kildare, I understand they have engaged with the officials of my department since the previous round, where they weren't successful for all the projects, although they had some success as well in other areas. But it is important that they would make a second application, make it as strong as possible, highlight all the issues you just highlighted yourself, the growth of the town, the potential growth of the town, the spaces that could still be used for compact development, for more housing development, but also more development of community services, and again, going back to the key word of winning jobs to match the existing houses that are there and the existing population. And that's what these funds are. On the project Ireland 2040, what we're trying to achieve here is something that always happened in the past in this country, is to set out long-term plans, but to back those plans up and to actually make them happen on the ground by putting real money behind them. Because there's no point in having long-term planning, long-term thinking, if you don't back it up with the finances. And for the first time, with the National Development Plan, the National Planning Framework, we have the development plan of a 10-year capital money, which is taxpayers' money of about 116 billion, that is being spent and will be spent. And if you review over the first 18 months of Project Ireland 2040, you can see that happening. We can see where projects are part of a national plan. And it's very, very important that when local authorities are making applications to these funds, they align them to their national objectives, strongly aligned with local objectives, and proof of concept here that this will allow for, again, to enable a greater proportion of residential and mixed-use development to be delivered within the existing build-up footprints of our cities and towns, which is exactly what you're outlined there in Newbridge. There is the opportunity. It might correct some of the mistakes of the past as well and free up space and land for development for the future. And that's key. And to make those links very, very clear. And hopefully then Kildare will do that in the next round of funding, which again, I'm happy to clarify that funding application should be and will be open for the end of this year as well.
Very good. We'll move on to the final topic, in the names of Deputy O'Snuddy and Joan Collins. I call on Deputy O'Snuddy, who has 2 minutes.
I want to first of all commend